Welcome, curious minds, to another really extensive exploration with the deep dive.
It's great to be back.
And we are just so grateful for your support. You know, the subscriptions, hitting those like buttons, all the comments you leave.
Yeah, the comments are fantastic.
They really are. And the shares, too. Every single one helps our channel, Midnight Whispers, AI01, reach, well, more curious people like you.
Exactly. Building the community.
So, today's deep dive. This is genuinely one of our favorite topics. We've been really eager to share this one with you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a big one.
We are delving into the really extraordinary, sometimes challenging world of ancient trees.
Yeah, and it's a subject that really forces you to look at, well, everything differently, doesn't it?
It really does.
You know, for centuries, various traditions, sometimes people call them the Trees of Eden traditions, have talked about these incredible structures.
Yeah.
Things that just don't fit our normal modern view.
Right, like what mainstream science now just calls plateaus.
Yeah.
You know, natural rock formations.
Exactly. But from this other perspective, they're seen as remnants, stark remnants, sometimes looking exactly like huge felled tree trunks.
It's uncanny sometimes.
And we know a lot of you listening probably feel that too. You have a different kind of intuition about these massive things you see out there in the landscape.
Absolutely. And for those of you who joined us for previous deep dives, maybe especially the one on Did Giants Live on Earth?
Ah, yes, the Giants episode.
You might be thinking, well, how does this connect? Ancient trees, giants. Seems kind of different.
On the surface, maybe?
But contrary to how it looks at first, these ideas are actually way more interconnected than you might think. They sort of weave together.
It's like pulling on one thread and finding it connected to a whole hidden tapestry, really. It's all about, well, opening up our perception.
Yeah, allowing ourselves to consider a reality that's, you know, beyond the usual story we get told. So, okay, how do we even start to challenge these perceptions we've held for so long? The journey today, it kind of kicks off with a pretty provocative idea. The idea that our perception itself, how we see the world, might be, well, some sources say blinded or even ordered by a kind of matrix.
Ah, the matrix concept. Not the movie necessarily, but the idea of a filter.
Right. The concept suggests that as we get older, our eyes, sort of metaphorically speaking, become traders. We build up these filters, these ingrained ways of seeing.
So we end up perceiving the world in this predetermined, conditioned way. We lose that fresh perspective, maybe the kind kids have.
Exactly that. And there's that classic illustration people use for this, isn't there?
Oh, the dolphins picture, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, you showed this specific picture to young kids, and apparently they often just immediately see like 9 dolphins hidden in the image.
Yeah.
But most adults, they look at the very same picture, and the first thing they perceive is just 2 lovers.
Wow.
And it's not just a visual puzzle, you know, it really highlights how our ingrained perceptions built up over years can actually stop us seeing other realities, even when they're right there.
So our adult minds are just sort of locked into one interpretation.
Kind of, yeah. Resisting seeing something totally different.
And according to some of the sources we've looked at, this conditioning, it's not just accidental.
No, they portray it as more deliberate, like a system.
Right. The claim is that official science, and they often use that term pretty critically, is basically engaged in, well, their words, total bullshit and nonsense.
Strong words.
Yeah. They argue that the standard explanations for natural stuff are just too simple. And they're used to just dismiss any unconventional theories.
Suggesting there's an effort to keep us from seeing a bigger or maybe just a different picture of how things really are.
And this perspective, it really makes you question who holds the authority on information, doesn't it?
It does. And the sources, they actually name names. They point fingers at big institutions like the Smithsonian.
Oh, really? The Smithsonian?
Yeah, and even popular media like the History Channel, accusing them of being involved in this alleged cover-up.
A cover-up. Wow. So the idea is they deliberately mislabel things, misinterpret history or geology to keep a certain story going.
That's the suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, to maintain the accepted narrative.
So, okay. When we look at these incredible natural features, you know, the ones we've always known as majestic mountains or ancient rocks or these huge canyons, vast deserts.
Yeah, we see in national parks, maybe?
Exactly. These sources are basically saying we're being fed a story that hides their real origin, that they're mislabeled as national parks or miracles of nature.
To kind of veil a deeper, maybe more shocking truth about what they actually are.
And building on that, one of the most, well, radical claims is about deserts.
Ah, yes, the deserts. Not natural, they say.
Not at all. The claim is deserts are 100% artificial.
100%. How?
They're seen as the result, the leftovers of long-term mining activities, like on a massive planetary scale, leaving behind just scarred, barren land.
Wow, so Earth as a giant quarry, basically.
That's kind of the picture it paints. So what does this mean for you, listening to this, trying to make sense of these different views?
It's a big ask, isn't it?
It is. To break through this matrix, this conditioning, you basically have to become really skeptical, profoundly skeptical.
Question everything.
Question everything. And, they say, quite dramatically, you need to reverse your concept of forests by 360 degrees. Like flip your whole viewpoint around.
To even begin to see the truth that's supposedly hidden right in front of us. It's not just looking, it's seeing with a whole new framework.
Yeah, perceiving differently. And this challenging idea, it leads us straight into the absolute core of today's deep dive.
The main theory.
The main theory. This radical alternative idea that many of Earth's biggest landforms, those mountains, those rock formations, they aren't geological at all.
But instead,
they're presented as the petrified remains of absolutely colossal ancient trees, but not carbon-based.
silicon-based.
Silicon-based trees. It just completely turns our understanding of Earth's ancient history and its landscape totally upside down.
It really does. And the scale they're talking about here, it's almost impossible to grasp.
Right. Our current forests, even, the giant redwoods, maybe 100 meters tall.
Which seem huge to us.
Totally. But in this narrative, they're dismissed as just pathetic bushes, or even like moss compared to these ancient giants.
It's like comparing a blade of grass to a skyscraper. That kind of difference in scale, but applied to trees.
We need some examples, I think.
Yeah.
Let's take Devil's Tower in the US, that amazing, iconic rock pillar thing.
Everyone knows Devil's Tower.
This theory says that's actually a giant stump of a giant silicon tree.
Just the stump. Okay.
And if you do a kind of proportional calculation based on its base, which is about 300 meters wide.
Which is already huge.
The theory suggests the original tree was, wait for it, 6 kilometers tall?
6 kilometers? That's nearly 20,000 feet into the upper atmosphere?
It's staggering. Absolutely staggering.
Wait, give me another one.
How about Table Mountain in Cape Town, South Africa? That massive flat-topped mountain.
Okay, the plateau. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 3 kilometers across. Under this theory, that suggests an original tree height of 60 kilometers.
60? That's into space, practically. How do you even visualize that?
Well, the sources try to help. They suggest you could fit like a huge residential area with all the shopping malls, schools, and parks onto just one branch of a tree that size.
One branch. Wow, okay. That helps a bit. It's still mind-bending.
And it's not just these specific places. They mention Pushkin's legendary giant fairy oak from literature.
Usually seen as just myth.
Right, but cited here as maybe being some 100 kilometers high, suggesting this memory of enormous trees is sort of embedded globally.
The collective memory, maybe. Wow.
It's almost too big to think about. And then there's Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia, the world's biggest salt flat. Huge, 10,000 square kilometers.
Yeah, salt flats. Amazing place.
The theory goes even further here. It claims it's not geological, but a living being of the silicone form of life.
A living silicon being that size.
Measuring, get this, 10,000 kilometers wide. And that it was somehow scraped out by the adepts of technocracy by their machines.
Scraped out? Like harvested or mined? An ancient advanced civilization literally reshaping the planet or taking life from it.
That seems to be the implication.
Yeah.
Which brings us to, okay, what were these trees made of?
Right. The silicon aspect.
They weren't carbon-based like life today. They were silicon life forms. And this difference is supposedly crucial.
How so?
Well, you can cut down a carbon-based sequoia with an axe or a saw, right? But the sources claim all axes and saws would break if they had to cut silicon.
So much harder, much more resilient, which kind of fits if they're the source of massive rock formations we see today.
Exactly. So if they were silicon-based, how did they become stone? How did they petrify?
Good question. The theory says they petrified, turning into semi-precious stones, maybe even precious gems.
Like we see in Arizona's Petrified Forest National Park. Lots of quartz and stuff there.
Sort of like that, yeah. But the sources are pretty skeptical about what they call the magical transformation explanation that official science gives for petrification.
Implying the standard explanation doesn't really cover the scale or the specific nature of this supposed silicon petrification.
That seems to be the gist. They think there's more to it.
Okay, so besides the scale, what about the structure? Is there alleged evidence in the formations themselves?
Yes, definitely. A big part of the argument centers on those distinctive hexagonal columns you see, like at Devil's Tower or the Giant's Causeway in Ireland.
Very geometric, very precise looking.
Exactly. And proponents compare these patterns to the cellular structure in some plants, like flax stems, and also to natural things like snowflakes or bee honeycombs.
Okay, hexagons are common in nature.
Right. The argument is that the hexagon is the most efficient economical figure structurally, and it shows this fractal pattern in the universe, the same basic shapes repeating from tiny scales, like plant cells, up to these huge geological things.
The universal blueprint, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. And the evidence, they claim, goes beyond just the shape.
How so?
They talk about a petrified skin on these columns, something that apparently cracks and peels off like bark, suggesting it was made of multiple fiber types, maybe?
Interesting, like layers.
Yeah. And they also claim these columns don't just go straight down. They supposedly bend gradually and merge into what look like root systems underground.
Mirroring how a real tree's roots would spread out.
Exactly. And those flat tops you see on mesas and buttes, interpreted as direct evidence that these massive trees were literally cut down, sawed off by some ancient force or technology.
Wow. So stumps on a planetary scale.
That's the image, yeah. But it wasn't just about size or structure. These trees are given a really profound purpose in this narrative.
Okay, like what? More than just being big trees.
Oh, yeah. They're described as powerful energy generators, like producing constant electricity for a lost world.
Ancient power plants.
Kind of, and also as large antennae of sorts, connecting different places or maybe different dimensions, even acting as portals to another world.
Portals, wow.
Yeah, the idea is they were like bridges between the realm of the gods and the realm of man, allowing travel or communication between realities.
This deeply mythological sounding.
It is, and they were also supposedly able to keep data from everything on the planet and save it in their information portal in their carbon fibers.
Wait, carbon fibers? I thought they were silicon-based. Maybe they mean silicon fibers or just information storage within their structure.
That's a good point. The wording there might be a bit loose in the source, maybe meaning their fundamental structure rather than literal carbon. The core idea is they were like living libraries or hard drives.
Ancient Akashic records, almost, but in tree form.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe most intriguingly, what about crystal caves?
Yeah, what about them?
The theory suggests they're the remnants of the ancient root systems, and the crystals formed there because they were under these antennae that are charged with immense energy.
Ah, so the tree roots channeled energy that formed the crystals, making them the source of all the gems of the world.
That's the radical idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a truly massive reimagining of the planet's past. Energy, portals, data storage, gems, all from giant silicon trees.
It's a lot to take in, a completely different world picture.
Definitely. But okay, to do a proper deep dive, we have to look at the other side too. We need to understand the established scientific view.
Absolutely. Balance is key.
So let's switch gears. What does conventional geology actually say about these formations, especially the basalt columns? How are they explained scientifically?
Right. So, geologically speaking, basalt columns have a very specific chemical makeup. They're mostly magnesium, silica, and calcium oxides.
Oh, oxides, okay.
Yeah, these are igneous rocks, meaning they cooled from molten lava or magma. They also have smaller amounts of potassium, sodium, iron, and titanium oxides, but in pretty consistent ratios.
And this specific mix is important.
Very. Especially the silica content, which is lower than in many other rock types. That's key to basalt's properties. And for it to be strong and uniform, the original molten stuff has to be super hot.
Why super hot?
To melt everything completely so all those elements mix perfectly evenly, like a totally homogeneous liquid. That thorough mixing is what gives the final rock its consistent strength and structure when it cools.
Okay, so it's not just the ingredients, but how well they're blended at extreme heat.
Yeah.
And the cooling process itself, that's critical for the columns, isn't it?
Absolutely central.
Yeah.
As this molten lava cools down, and it often cools relatively quickly, it starts to contract. This causes internal stress.
Like when things shrink as they cool.
Exactly. And this stress creates what geologists call a thermal grain inside the cooling rock. This grain then dictates how the rock cracks.
Ah, the hexagonal pattern.
Right. It tends to crack perpendicular to the cooling surface, usually the top or bottom, and fracture parallel to that surface at the same time. Think of it like tempering steel rapid cooling creates specific internal structures.
So it's a natural result of physics and chemistry at high temperatures.
Pretty much. And the consistent color, the density, the hardness you see throughout these columns, that's direct evidence of those well-mixed elements and that uniform cooling process.
Okay, that sounds like a solid explanation. But how can geologists be sure about this thermal grain? Is there proof beyond just looking at the columns?
Oh, yeah. You see the patterns when columns break naturally due to erosion, but scientists also do tests.
Like what?
Like if you drill a hole down the center of a basalt column and set off a controlled explosion, the pressure is symmetrical.
Okay.
And the rock consistently breaks along that internal structural grain. You get these incredibly clean, straight breaks running parallel to the sides of the column.
Predictable fractures.
Exactly. It directly demonstrates that internal structure, and it perfectly fits with material science principles and the geological explanation of cooling lava.
Okay, so we have this alternative theory, giant silicon trees with its own kind of evidence, but science presents these direct challenges. Let's get into what seems like the biggest hurdle. The chemistry just doesn't match, right?
Yeah, that chemical incompatibility is probably the most fundamental scientific objection. Let's look at petrified wood, again, wood turned to stone.
Okay.
Chemically, petrified wood is consistently over 90% silica, SiO2. That high silica content is basically the fingerprint of organic stuff becoming rock through that process.
Right, lots of silica. And basalt.
Basalt very rarely has more than 60% silica. Often it's closer to 50%. And actually, it's this lower silica content that helps make basalt flow easily when it's molten lava. It gives it different properties.
So wait, if the ancient trees were silicon-based, as the theory claims,
then logically, their petrified remains should have even higher silica content than regular petrified wood, shouldn't they?
Yeah, you'd think so. Which would put them even further away from basalt's actual chemistry. It makes the gap even bigger.
Exactly. And scientifically, researchers have looked. They've found no petrified samples anywhere that have a chemical makeup or internal structure remotely similar to basalt. The numbers just don't add up.
And what about the structural evidence? The hexagonal patterns in plants?
Well, when scientists actually examine plant structures microscopically, they find almost nothing that matched the super regular perfect hexagons you see in basalt columns.
Not even in flax stems or things like that.
Apparently not with that kind of geometric precision. Real tree fibers under magnification look more like, quote, cracked mud or salt pillars than columnar basalt. Even the best natural examples in plants are usually quite irregular.
So the comparison is maybe a bit superficial.
From the scientific view, yes. And then there's the context. Where do you actually find these basalt columns?
That's a key point too, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. Geologically, basalt columns are consistently found embedded between layers of solid basalt rock, or within massive lava flows. Places where there's clearly no way roots could have burrowed through solid rock layers that were already there.
Ah, so tree couldn't grow into existing solid rock like that.
Precisely. It directly contradicts the idea of them being stumps with roots growing downwards. The surrounding geology points strongly towards an igneous origin formed from cooling lava flows, not pre-existing giant trees.
So, scientifically, the chemistry, the microstructure, the geological setting, it all points towards cooled lava, not petrified silicon trees.
That's the consensus based on the physical evidence, yes.
It's fascinating, though, how the same formations can be interpreted in such radically different ways. Two completely different stories from the same stones.
It really highlights the role of framework and belief in interpretation.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift again. Let's bring in the myths, the cultural stories, because as some of these sources argue, maybe these aren't just stories. Maybe they're memories.
Right, suppressed collective memories, or oral histories holding fragments of real, forgotten events.
And one really striking thing here is how common that world tree idea is. Right?
It's astonishingly universal. You find it everywhere. Ancient Mesopotamia, the Chaldeans, Phoenicians, Japan, the Norse with Yggdrasil, obviously.
Yggdrasil, yeah.
The Maori in New Zealand, indigenous American groups.
Yeah.
Like near Mount Roraima, there's that myth of the trickster god Makinayama cutting down a huge tree, which caused a massive flood.
Wow, felling the tree caused a flood.
Yeah. Then you've got Hindu traditions with the cosmic banyan tree, the jambu tree, the Mayan Saba tree, the Egyptian En tree, OAS tree in Java, the Fong tree in China, the Aztec tree of the sun and moon.
It just goes on and on.
It really does. Even in the Bible, Daniel's dream of that giant tree reaching heaven being cut down by a watcher. The Book of Enoch talks about angels working on trees. the Garden of Eden's trees.
Right, it's tree of life, tree of knowledge.
And even more recently, indigenous stories like the Miwok people's Wawona tree, that giant sequoia tunnel tree. They saw it as a living ancestor, and when it fell, it was seen as severing ties to the past, or an Inuit legend of a hero using a giant tree as a spear.
The sheer number of cultures with this motif is incredible. It really does suggest some kind of shared, deep, ancient memory or understanding.
It's hard to dismiss it as pure coincidence.
And these myths, they don't just talk about the trees existing, they often explain how they were destroyed, right?
Yes, and often dramatically. The felling is attributed to powerful beings, sometimes called demon bosses, or maybe the Nephilim, the giants we talked about before.
Giants cutting down the world tree.
Yeah, and the reasons given are often about power, like a show of power to the gods, or deliberately trying to sever the bridge between the spirit world and ours, cutting off that connection.
And we see echoes of that in legends, too, like Gilgamesh cutting down the cedar forest.
Exactly. Or, historically, Charlemagne destroying Irminsul, which was a sacred pillar, possibly representing a world tree, to the pagan Saxons. This idea of destroying these central connectors seems ancient.
And consistently, these myths give the trees really profound functions, don't they, beyond just being big?
Oh, absolutely. They're seen as literal bridges to other realms, or portals, as large antenna drawing or sending energy, as energy generators powering the world.
And as information portals, too, right? Storing knowledge.
Yeah, holding the planet's data, like we discussed. A living record.
Then often linked to sources of life or enlightenment, maybe connected to potent plants.
Definitely. Things like ayahuasca or Amanita muscaria mushrooms often feature in shamanic practices tied to these world tree concepts, sources of vision, connection, healing.
So the argument from these sources is that mainstream science, because it's so focused on what it can measure today.
What they call uniformitarianism, the idea that processes were always the same.
Right. Science is maybe unwilling or unable to really explore these more out there theories or things like consciousness itself.
Leaving these ancient myths and traditions as the only place holding potential answers that science just can't prove with its current methods. It hints at a different kind of knowledge system.
It really does. So, okay, if we try to pull all these threads together, the giant silicon trees, the myths, the idea of a lost past, we end up with this really radical picture.
A picture of an Earth that was once completely different.
Yeah, fantastic, fabulous, and beautiful, covered in giant vegetation, but somehow transformed into what we see now, largely a desert and a scrapyard.
Which brings us back to that question, how? Why the transformation? And the theory circles back to mining.
Massive mining operations, the idea that the planet was literally scraped out.
By long-term mining activities using giant graders and machines, unimaginably large equipment.
And this is where mountains get reinterpreted, right?
Yeah.
Not geological features, but...
Piles of loose waste left behind by these machines, different from rocks, which are seen as solid chunks of the broken tree stumps.
And the Grand Canyon.
Described simply as giant quarry waste. A massive scar from this ancient industry.
Even huge lakes like the Aral Sea, the Caspian Sea.
Are supposed to be giant flooded quarries, huge holes that just filled with water over millennia.
And deserts, again, 100% artificial results of this mining.
And even volcanoes like Vesuvius or Mount Fuji. The theory claims they aren't natural volcanoes.
What are they then?
Piles of waste, or something called terracon, basically. Giant artificial mounds of earth and materials that can chemically react, burn, explode, not magma from the Earth's core.
So fundamentally, this view claims no such things as volcanoes, rocks, and mountains as we conventionally understand them. It's all remnants of trees or industrial waste.
It's a complete inversion of geology, and it gets even more dramatic.
How so?
This planetary devastation is also linked to an ancient nuclear war.
A nuclear war?
Allegedly between 1780 and 1815, a specific time frame, resulting in a nuclear winter around 1816.
1816, the year without a summer. Usually attributed to the Tambora eruption.
Oh, right, but this theory offers a different cause. A war so devastating it supposedly burned away 99% of Earth's biosphere.
99%, that's almost everything.
And the claim gets wilder. The ice at the poles. It's said to be mostly water from all those burned organisms.
No.
And huge blast waves from this war supposedly flattened entire forests too, adding another layer to the destruction of the ancient world.
This paints a picture of a cataclysm far beyond anything in mainstream history. And the implication for us now
is that our current society, even with all our tech, is like kids in the sandbox compared to whatever civilization existed just, say, 200 years ago.
It completely flips the script on progress, doesn't it? Suggesting we've maybe devolved or lost something huge.
Which leads to the question, is there any physical evidence presented for that, for a more advanced recent past?
Good question. What do the sources point to?
They highlight specific artifacts and structures that they claim are impossible to make without modern high-precision machinery. Things made relatively recently, historically speaking.
Like what?
Okay, there's something called the bubble-off bath from roughly 1784 to 1820, described as having these incredibly precise concave and convex surfaces, polished perfectly smooth.
Supposedly impossible to do by hand back then. Needs machines.
That's the claim, needs machine processing. Then there's the Alexandrian column from 1834. It's massive, 600 tons, 27 meters high, made of granite.
Huge.
And they argue you just couldn't make that manually. You'd need an enormous, precise lathe machine.
Okay, what else?
In Peru, at a site called Alitambo, you see these huge blocks, 40 to 120 tons each, fitted together in complex polygonal shapes.
For precision fitting, yeah.
With adjustments in 3 dimensions. They argue that level of stonework is beyond simple tools.
And sculpture.
Yeah, the Capella Sano. It's a single piece of marble sculpture, incredibly intricate, said to be impossible without advanced CNC machines. Like, nothing comparable has been replicated even today using traditional methods.
CNC, computer-controlled carving.
Right, and even things like the Sevastopol bridges, where every single stone in the polygonal masonry is considered a unique, perfectly shaped sculpture. They point to that as evidence of lost advanced stoneworking technology.
So artifacts that seem too precise, too massive, or too complex for the tools we assume existed just a couple of centuries ago.
Exactly. All feeding into this idea that maybe our view of the recent past is wrong, that there was a higher level of technology before some kind of collapse or reset.
It's a challenging thought. It really asks you to reconsider everything.
Which seems to be the main point. The overarching message from these sources is really a call to open your minds.
To critically look at everything you were taught, especially in school history and science.
Yeah, to question everything. The suggestion is that the real story, the truth about ancient technologies, maybe giant trees, planetary changes, it's hidden, deliberately kept from us.
By the very system supposed to inform us. It's a powerful, if unsettling, idea.
Definitely makes you think.
And that, I think, brings us towards the end of another really deep, really thought-provoking exploration. We've covered a lot of ground.
From giant trees to ancient nukes to impossible artifacts. Yeah, quite the journey.
Thank you so much for joining us on this. We really hope it sparked some curiosity. And please do comment. Let us know what stood out, what you think.
Yeah, we love reading the comments. And share this material if you found it interesting. Share it wherever you can.
It genuinely helps us keep these deep dives going and reach more people who are asking these kinds of questions.
And of course, if you enjoyed this, if you found it valuable, please do subscribe to Midnight Whispers I01 and click that like button.
It really does make a difference for the channel. So our final thought, as always, always remain curious, definitely, but always seek the truth and the answers because, well, they're out there somewhere.
You just need to know where to look. Or perhaps how to look.
Exactly. Thank you again for today's deep dive.
And remember, you can find lots of other fascinating topics just by browsing our channel, Midnight Whispers II01.
Cheerfully. See you in the next podcast.